Terrorism studies have been shaped by the groundbreaking work of pioneering scholars and experts who dedicated their lives to understanding and combating this global threat. In this video, we explore the contributions of leading figures who have defined the field and influenced both academia and policy. David Rapoport. David Rapoport was a professor emeritus of political science at UCLA and a leading figure in the academic study of terrorism. Rapoport earned his PhD from UC Berkeley in 1960 and joined UCLA's political science department in 1962. In 1969, he taught the first-ever course on terrorism in the United States, laying the foundation for terrorism studies as an academic discipline. In 1989, he founded the journal Terrorism and Political Violence, which remains a cornerstone of the field. His groundbreaking 1999 article introduced the waves theory of modern terrorism, widely recognized after the 9/11 attacks. Throughout his career, Rapoport received numerous accolades, including awards from the Ford Foundation and Fulbright Program, authored 6 books, and published over 50 articles. He retired in 1995 but continued teaching and contributing to the field until 2011. David Rapoport's work shaped the global understanding of terrorism and continues to inspire researchers, policymakers, and security experts worldwide. Paul Wilkinson. Paul Wilkinson was a distinguished British scholar and a leading authority on terrorism studies. He served as Emeritus Professor of International Relations at the University of St. Andrews and played a pivotal role in shaping academic and governmental approaches to terrorism. Wilkinson was born in Harrow, Middlesex, and earned his degrees in modern history and politics from Swansea University. After serving as an education officer in the Royal Air Force, he began his academic career in 1966 at Cardiff University, later becoming the first chair in international relations at the University of Aberdeen. His groundbreaking book, Political Terrorism, became a cornerstone of the field. In 1989, he joined the University of St. Andrews, where he co-founded the Center for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence in 1994 with Bruce Hoffman. Over 5 decades, Wilkinson provided deep analyses of terrorism, from the IRA bombings to the 9/11 attacks. He advocated for democratic responses to terrorism, opposing measures that undermined the rule of law, such as extended detention without trial and practices violating international law, like Guantanamo Bay. His work emphasized that counterterrorism must remain within the boundaries of democratic principles. Paul Wilkinson's dedication to understanding terrorism and advocating democratic responses continues to guide scholars and policymakers in addressing the complexities of terrorism in a lawful and ethical manner. Brian Michael Jenkins.
Terrorism is about communications, primarily. Terrorism is about manipulation of an audience. Terrorism is violence that is choreographed to achieve psychological effects. Terrorism is aimed at the people watching. It's not about battles. It's not about winning battles and infantrymen battles. So
Jenkins is a senior advisor to the president at the Rand Corporation and a leading authority on terrorism and national security. A former chair of Rand's political science department, he has authored numerous influential works, including Will Terrorists Go Nuclear?, Unconquerable Nation, Knowing Our Enemy, Strengthening Ourselves, 2006, and Stray Dogs and Virtual Armies. Jenkins' military background as a decorated Green Beret captain and paratrooper has shaped his expertise in security and counterterrorism. His insights have been sought by prominent bodies such as the White House Commission on Aviation Safety and Security and the National Commission on Terrorism. Holding a master's degree in history from UCLA, Jenkins has published extensively on terrorism, influencing both academic thought and national policy. He co-edited the Rand study The Long Shadow of 9/11, America's Response to Terrorism, further cementing his role as a thought leader in the field. Jenkins remains a frequent commentator in media, offering expert analysis on terrorism and security issues. Walter Laqueur. Laqueur was a distinguished historian and journalist, recognized for his groundbreaking work on political violence and 20th-century history. Born in Breslau, Germany, he fled Nazi persecution in 1938, emigrating to Palestine, where he immersed himself in both Jewish and Arab cultures. Laqueur began his journalism career in Jerusalem, contributing to Al-Hamishmar and the Palestine Post. In 1955, he moved to London, editing Soviet Survey and publishing Communism and Nationalism in the Middle East, his first English book. His acclaimed Weimar, A Cultural History remains a definitive study of the era. A pioneer in terrorism studies, Laqueur authored seminal works such as Guerrilla Warfare and Terrorism, offering a foundational analysis of urban terrorism. His later works, including The Last Days of Europe and Putinism, explored European demographic shifts and Vladimir Putin's leadership. Laqueur's multidisciplinary approach and commitment to understanding political violence and authoritarian regimes left a lasting legacy. Alex Schmid. Professor Schmid is a renowned authority in counterterrorism, serving as a distinguished fellow at the International Center for Counterterrorism, ICCT, in The Hague and director of the Terrorism Research Initiative, TRI.
I will not talk about definitions. Actually, I'm quite happy with Boas' definition, and since mine, it was shorter than his, namely terrorism as peacetime equivalents of war crimes.
He is also one of the 3 directors of the Terrorism Research Consortium, a global network dedicated to studying terrorism. From 1978 to 2018, Professor Schmid held academic positions at Leiden University and Erasmus University Rotterdam, where he was extraordinary professor for conflict resolution. He later chaired the Center for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence at the University of St. Andrews. Additionally, he led the Terrorism Prevention Branch at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Vienna for nearly 7 years. A prolific scholar, Professor Schmid has authored nearly 200 publications in 10 languages, including the award-winning Handbook of Terrorism Prevention and Preparedness. He has edited influential works like the Routledge Handbook of Terrorism Research and co-edited Terrorism and Political Violence from 1989 to 2009. Recognized as a global expert, Professor Schmid has been a NATO Research Fellow and contributed extensively to terrorism prevention through over 225 book chapters, articles, and reports. His work significantly shapes academic research and international policy making in counterterrorism. Martha Crenshaw. Crenshaw is a leading scholar in the study of political terrorism.
And it's still controversial. It's what we call a contested concept, and you'll see this just by reading the news media every day, that people disagree as to what it is. I think of it, first of all, as a form of violence or a threat of violence. It has to involve violence. It has to be political. And it has.
She serves as a senior fellow at Stanford University's Center for International Security and Cooperation, CISAC, and the Freeman Spalyi Institute, FSI, as well as a courtesy professor of political science. Her academic journey began at Wesleyan University, where she served as the Colin and Nancy Campbell Professor of Global Issues and Democratic Thought from 1974 to 2007. Crenshaw's influential work includes Explaining Terrorism and Countering Terrorism. Her first seminal article, The Concept of Revolutionary Terrorism, was published in 1972. Crenshaw has contributed significantly to global security efforts, serving on the Executive Board of Women in International Security and the Council of the International Society of Political Psychology. Her work has been recognized with prestigious fellowships, including a Guggenheim Fellowship. As a lead investigator at the National Center for the Study of Terrorism and the Response to Terrorism, START, she contributed groundbreaking research on terrorism and organizational mapping. Crenshaw's work continues to shape the academic and policy landscape, providing critical insights into the causes, strategies, and prevention of terrorism worldwide. Jerrold Post. Jerrold Post was a groundbreaking American psychiatrist and a pioneer in political psychology. Born in New Haven, Connecticut, he earned his MD from Yale University in 1960 and completed his residency at Harvard Medical School. In 1965, Post joined the CIA, where he developed psychological profiles of world leaders and authored influential psychobiographies. His work over 21 years at the CIA laid the foundation for the field of political psychology, focusing on the psychological underpinnings of political behavior and terrorism. After leaving the CIA in 1986, Post founded the Center for the Analysis of Personality and Political Behavior and established a political psychology program at George Washington University, where he taught until 2015.
Well, it's always been a loaded term, and to call someone a terrorist in some ways is almost a diagnosis.
He authored 14 books and over 200 publications, including The Mind of the Terrorist and Dangerous Charisma. Jerrold Post's legacy endures through his pioneering research, which continues to shape the fields of political psychology, counterterrorism, and the study of leadership behavior. John Horgan. John Horgan, a professor of global studies and psychology at Georgia State University, is renowned for his expertise in the psychology of terrorism.
So it is critical to take a very careful look at where we've come from and to get a sense of what we have achieved. There are three major themes that I think have really cropped up time and time again in the last 50 years of research on terrorist psychology, 48 years to be precise.
With a PhD in applied psychology, he has dedicated his career to understanding why individuals turn to and disengage from terrorism. Horgan's research explores key areas such as the personal journeys of terrorists, radicalization and de-radicalization processes, the role of children in terrorist groups, and the links between religious conversion and violent extremism. His work also investigates the psychological factors behind self-concealment within terrorist organizations. His most recent book, The Psychology of Terrorism, reflects his extensive insights into these topics, offering a comprehensive analysis of terrorist behavior. Beyond his research, Horgan has served on the editorial board of the International Center for Counterterrorism, ICCT, and collaborated extensively to advance terrorism studies. His work informs both academic discussions and practical strategies for countering extremist violence. Horgan's contributions have significantly deepened our understanding of the psychological dimensions of terrorism, providing critical frameworks for researchers and policymakers alike. His dedication continues to influence global efforts to prevent and combat terrorism effectively. Bruce Hoffman. Bruce Hoffman, a senior fellow for counterterrorism and homeland security at the Council on Foreign Relations, is a leading authority on terrorism and insurgency with nearly 5 decades of experience. He is a tenured professor at Georgetown University's Edmund A. Walsh School of Foreign Service and previously directed the Center for Jewish Civilization and the Center for Security Studies.
I believe it's effective, and therefore I believe we have to similarly take it seriously that terrorists are convinced they can win certainly short-term tactical gains. I mean, the most basic one being attracting attention to themselves and their cause by using violence, and that happens all the time. The question is whether it's more expedient as a long-term strategy. And there I think, fortunately for history, the answer is no, but the problem is the exceptions that do exist have been highly consequential exceptions, where terrorism, if it hasn't changed the course of history.
Internationally, Hoffman has served as an honorary professor at the University of St Andrews in Scotland. Hoffman's expertise extends to his work at the RAND Corporation, where he held the corporate chair in counterterrorism and counterinsurgency and served as director of its Washington, D.C. office. His leadership has profoundly influenced contemporary strategies for combating terrorism. His forthcoming book, God, Guns, and Sedition: Far-Right Terrorism in America, co-authored with Jacob Ware, explores the complexities of far-right extremism and provides valuable insights for scholars and policymakers. Bruce Hoffman's distinguished career has shaped both academic and policy approaches to counterterrorism. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay safe, and subscribe for more in-depth analyses on global security threats.